What happens when a single act of arrogance rips open a city's darkest secrets? Picture a courtroom, electric with tension, where a decorated cop, drunk on power, makes a fatal mistake, striking the one woman who holds the truth in her hands. In the next few minutes, you'll see a battle that shakes a nation, exposing corruption, prejudice, and a courage that refuses to break. This isn't just a story, it's a call to stand up. Share your story of fighting for justice in the comments below and tell us where you're watching from. Stay with us, because the twist will leave you speechless. New Haven, Connecticut, was a city caught in a tug-of-war between its past and future. Ivy-covered Yale spires loomed over historic brownstones, while forgotten neighborhoods clung to resilience amidst decay. Old money whispered in boardrooms, but the streets roared with demands for change. On a chilly October morning in 2025, Judge Elena Torres strode into the New Haven Superior Court, her heels clicking like a metronome on the marble floors. At 58, Elena was a force. Her dark hair, streaked with silver, swept into a tight chignon, her brown eyes sharp enough to cut through lies. As the first Latina judge on the city's highest bench, she carried the weight of history and the scars of breaking barriers. The courthouse, with its grand columns and stained glass glow, had seen centuries of verdicts, some just, many not. Elena had fought its battles for decades, first as a public defender for those the system tossed aside, then as a prosecutor toppling corrupt officials, and now as a judge, her gavel a symbol of hard-won authority. She knew the price of her seat, the whispered slurs, the colleagues who sneered diversity hire, the politicians who smiled while plotting her fall. But Elena turned their doubts into fuel, her resolve forged in years of proving she belonged. As she cleared security, the guards offered warm nods. "Morning, Judge Torres," one said, his voice soft with respect. She gave a tight smile, her mind on the day's docket, a mix of petty crimes, a bail hearing, and a case that had set New Haven on fire. Months ago, a video had exploded on X, showing Officer Daniel Kessler, a local cop, slamming a black teenager to the ground during a traffic stop. The clip sparked protests, hashtags like New Haven demands justice, and a national debate on police reform. Today, Elena's courtroom was the epicenter of that storm. Her clerk, Mia Chen, a young woman with a quick mind and nervous eyes, met her outside the courtroom. "Judge, Kessler's here already. He's wound up." Elena's brow arched. "Kessler?" "Yes, ma'am. Lead witness in the Carter case. He's been barking at the prosecutor, acting like he runs the place." Elena's jaw tightened. She knew Kessler. Every lawyer in New Haven did. Late 30s, broad-shouldered, with a buzz cut and a strut that screamed untouchable. A second-generation cop, his family was woven into the city's power structure, union bosses, political allies, a legacy of blue. His file read like a rap sheet. 16 complaints in 8 years. Excessive force, racial profiling, intimidation, all buried by the union or dismissed by friendly prosecutors. Elena had seen his name too many times, each report a whiff of unchecked power. "Keep an eye on him," Elena said, her voice calm but firm, "and tell me if he steps out of line." Mia nodded, her eyes flickering with unease. Elena's instincts, sharpened by years on the bench, buzzed like a warning. Something was wrong. She slipped into the courtroom, not yet robed, blending into the hum of attorneys and clerks. The room was half full. Journalists jotting notes, activists gripping signs, a few protesters who dodged security. Kessler loomed at the prosecution table, arms crossed, his voice sharp as he berated Paul Grayson, the prosecutor. The defendant, 19-year-old Jamal Carter, sat with his public defender, his hands twisting in his lap. Jamal faced charges of resisting arrest and assaulting an officer, Kessler's version of the viral traffic stop. The X video showed a different truth, but Kessler's word was the case's linchpin. Elena settled at a side table, flipping through a file, unnoticed by Kessler. He didn't look her way, too busy snapping at Grayson. "This needs to end quick," he growled. "I'm not wasting my day on this punk." Elena's voice sliced through, low and steady. "I suggest you lower your tone, officer." Kessler spun, his eyes narrowing as he sized her up. She wasn't robed, just a Latina woman in a tailored blazer. To him, she was nobody. "Who the hell are you?" he spat, his voice thick with disdain. Elena didn't answer. She turned a page, her movements deliberate. The room began to quiet, sensing a shift. Kessler, fueled by her silence, stepped closer. "I'm talking to you. You with the defense or what?" She looked up, her gaze locking onto his like a vice. "You'll know soon enough." His lips curled into a smirk. "Don't play games with me. I've got better things to do than—" Then it happened. A sharp slap echoed like a gunshot, the sound freezing the room. Gasps erupted. A reporter's pen clattered to the floor. Jamal's eyes widened, his public defender frozen mid-breath. Elena didn't flinch. Her cheek burned, but she stood rooted, her eyes boring into Kessler's. He stepped back, a flicker of shock crossing his face, but no remorse. "Learn your place," he muttered, loud enough for all to hear. "This is my courtroom." A voice from the back whispered, "Did he just hit her?" Another, "Is she okay?" But Elena's composure was a fortress. She took a step forward, then another, the silence coiling like a spring. Kessler straightened, blind to the trap he'd set. "Is this how you treat officers of the court, Officer Kessler?" Her voice was calm, but it carried the weight of a guillotine. Confusion flashed across his face. He blinked, trying to place her. Mia whispered to an attorney, "She's not in her robe?" But Kessler wasn't listening. He didn't see the horror dawning around him. Journalists scribbling furiously, activists filming with trembling hands. "What are you talking about?" he snapped. "You got in my face. I don't care who you think you are." Elena ascended the bench, her movements deliberate, each step a verdict. She turned, facing him from the judge's seat, the room holding its breath. Kessler froze, his smirk dissolving as realization hit like a freight train. The gavel hadn't struck, but judgment had begun. "Sergeant Kessler," Elena said, her voice cutting like steel, "did you just strike me in this courtroom?" His mouth opened, then closed. His eyes darted to the two officers at the back, their faces ashen. "I didn't know it was you," he stammered. "You weren't robed. I thought—" "That is not what I asked," Elena said, her tone ablade. "Did you put your hand on me, yes or no?" Phones were out now, recording openly, the red lights of cameras blinking like silent witnesses. This wasn't just a scandal, it was evidence. Kessler's voice rose, desperate. "You were in my space. I didn't recognize you. I was just—" "You thought I was beneath you," Elena said, the words landing like a gavel. Kessler's jaw clenched, his face flushing crimson. "You're blowing this out of proportion," he spat. "I'm here to testify against a thug." He jabbed a finger at Jamal, who shrank slightly. "And you're turning this into some kind of—" Elena's voice boomed, the gavel slamming twice. "You do not justify assault by pointing fingers at a defendant." She turned to Mia, her tone crisp. "Ms. Chen, enter into the record that Officer Daniel Kessler has admitted to striking a sitting judge without cause or provocation. Kessler stumbled back, the weight of his mistake crashing down. This wasn't like his other complaints, buried by the union or erased by a handshake. Not with witnesses, cameras, and a judge who refused to blink. Elena glanced at Marcus Reed, the bailiff, a black man whose stoic face hid a storm of loyalty and pain. "Officer Reed, is this courtroom under video surveillance?" "Yes, Your Honor," Marcus replied, his voice steady but taut. "Good. The record will reflect visual evidence." Kessler's eyes flicked to the ceiling where red lights blinked like sentinels. His bravado crumbled, replaced by a glint of fear. "I didn't mean to—" he started, but Elena raised a hand, silencing him. "You've had years of not meaning to," she said. "I've read your file. 16 complaints in 8 years. Excessive force, racial profiling, witness intimidation, all dismissed, all buried. But today, you struck a judge in front of witnesses, under cameras. There's no rug big enough to sweep this under." Kessler's mouth worked, but no words came. Elena stood, her presence filling the room like a storm. "In accordance with the authority vested in me as a superior court judge for the state of Connecticut and under Connecticut general statutes, Section 53, -167C, I hereby place Officer Daniel Kessler under formal judicial investigation for assault on a public official." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Elena turned to Marcus. "Officer Reed, place Sergeant Kessler under temporary detainment. No cuffs yet. He remains a sworn officer, and I expect professionalism, but he is not to leave this room." Kessler's voice cracked. "You can't do this. I didn't know." "And yet," Elena said, her eyes unyielding, "you knew enough to hit me." He looked around, desperate for an ally, but found none. The officers at the back avoided his gaze. Grayson stared at his shoes. The courtroom door locked with a heavy thud, the sound echoing like a death knell. Marcus stood beside Kessler, his hand near his belt, ready but restrained. Kessler's fists clenched, his face a mask of rage and panic. Elena remained at the bench, her gaze a steel trap. "Your Honor," Grayson ventured, his voice trembling, "do you wish to proceed with the Carter case?" Elena's eyes flicked to him. "Not yet. First, I address the gallery because this is no longer about decorum. It's about the integrity of the law." She turned to the journalists, their pens scratching like a chorus. "You witnessed an on-duty officer assault the presiding judge. You heard his contempt, saw his actions. Record it, share it. Because if the law cannot protect those who uphold it, we are not a democracy, we are a lie." The room was silent, save for the hum of phones and the faint sob of an elderly woman in the back whispering, "Finally, justice." Kessler scoffed, unable to stop himself. "This is a circus. You're making a spectacle out of nothing." Elena descended the bench, her heels striking like a countdown. "A spectacle," she said, the microphone catching every syllable. "You've been untouchable for years, haven't you? Complaints vanish, witnesses recant, body cams malfunction. But today, you made a mistake no one can erase." Kessler's eyes darted to Marcus, but the bailiff stood firm, his own history with Kessler, a buried complaint from years ago, burning in his silence. "Here's what happens next," Elena continued. "Internal affairs will be notified. I will file a complaint with the state's attorney's office by noon. The footage is preserved, and the press," she gestured to the journalists, now live streaming on X, "they'll make sure the world knows before lunch." Kessler's voice broke. "You're ruining me over a misunderstanding?" No, Elena said, her tone final. You ruined yourself the moment you raised your hand. He glanced at Jamal, who met his gaze with quiet defiance, a spark of hope in his eyes. I've protected this city, Kessler said, his voice rising. I've put my life on the line, and now you're throwing me away because of one mistake? Elena ascended the bench again. I'm not throwing you away, officer. I'm holding you to the law you swore to serve. Your badge isn't a shield. It's a responsibility. And today, it's your chain. She tapped the microphone, her voice resolute. This courtroom is not adjourned, but the Carter case is postponed until tomorrow. The integrity of this hearing has been compromised. She nodded to Sarah Levy, Jamal's public defender, a young woman with fire in her eyes. Escort your client out safely. Ms. Levy. Jamal stood, his shoulders straighter now. He met Elena's gaze and nodded, a silent thank you, before leaving with Sarah. Kessler watched him go, his face a mask of resentment. Elena leaned into the microphone. Officer Reed, escort Sergeant Kessler to Holding Room C. I will contact Internal Affairs and the Chief of Police myself. This is now a criminal matter. Kessler didn't resist, but his shoulders slumped as Marcus guided him out, the crowd parting like a sea. Just before the door closed, he muttered, You think this changes anything? Elena didn't look at him. I think it's a start. The courthouse hallways erupted, a cacophony of voices and flashing cameras. Word spread faster than the ex-posts flooding the platform. Judge Torres assaulted, Kessler caught, New Haven, justice. By the time Elena reached her chambers, her phone buzzed with notifications, voicemails from the mayor's office, the police chief, and a local activist group chanting her name outside. She ignored them, slipping off her blazer and hanging it with care. In the mirror, a faint red mark lingered on her cheek. She studied it, not for the pain, but for the weight of what it meant. How many others had carried marks like this, or worse, without a voice to demand justice? A knock broke her thoughts. Marcus entered, his face grim but loyal. Kessler's in holding. Internal Affairs is sending agents. ETA 15 minutes. Thank you, Marcus. Elena sat at her desk, pulling out a legal pad. Her handwriting was surgical, listing incident, courtroom assault. Status, on record, video, audio confirmed. Witnesses, 14 present. Officers record, 16 complaints, 8 years. Notes, review Kessler's cases, cross-reference with Ada Grayson's dismissals. Marcus watched her write, his eyes heavy with something unspoken. His union's already circling. They called the chief while I was escorting him. Let them circle, Elena said. This isn't slipping away. She looked up, her voice steady. I want every case Kessler touched in the last decade flagged, arrests, testimonies, complaints, and cross-check Grayson's dismissals. Marcus whistled softly. That's a mountain of files. Then we start climbing. He nodded but hesitated, his fingers tightening on the doorframe. They're going to come for you, Elena. You know that. She met his gaze, seeing the flicker of guilt in his eyes, a shadow from years ago when he'd stayed silent during one of Kessler's scandals. They already did, she said. They picked the wrong target. 30 minutes later, Internal Affairs agents arrived. Agent Tanya Brooks, a black woman with a reputation for dismantling corruption, and Agent Javier Morales, a former cop turned investigator with a nose for lies. They sat across from Elena, a thick file labeled Kessler, Daniel, between them. Brooks's voice was steady, but her eyes burned with purpose, a scar on her wrist a reminder of her own run-in with a cop like Kessler years ago. We've had eyes on him for years, she said, Complaints pile up, but they dissolve. Witnesses back out. Evidence goes missing. Prosecutors drop charges. Sounds like a pattern, Elena said, her tone dry. Morales nodded, his jaw tight. Your courtroom footage is gold. Audio, video, multiple angles. We've got his strike, his statements, your response. This isn't just assault. It's a window into everything he's gotten away with. I don't want a window, Elena said. I want a wrecking ball. This isn't just Kessler, it's the system that's been propping him up. Brooks studied her, a spark of recognition in her gaze. You're talking about a deep dive. Prosecutors, commanders, maybe elected officials. Elena didn't blink. Good. Morales slid a tablet across the table. Then you need to see this. It was a 2023 report buried in the department's archives. A civilian, a young black man, accused Kessler of planting evidence during a drug bust. The accuser recanted after a visit from Kessler's partner. The body cam footage erased due to technical failure. The reviewing officer, Captain Robert Malone, Kessler's mentor and now deputy chief of the New Haven PD. Elena's eyes narrowed. Malone's untouchable. Until now, Brooks said, her voice low. There's more, Morales added, tapping the tablet. A financial record appeared, a $20,000 donation to the Police Benevolent Fund last year, funneled through a shell company tied to a real estate developer cozy with the mayor's office. The fund's top beneficiary for legal defense, Daniel Kessler. Elena leaned back, her mind racing. This wasn't a rogue cop. It was a machine, oiled by money, loyalty, and silence. I want a list, she said. Every case Kessler touched, every complaint buried, every prosecutor who looked the other way, on my desk by tomorrow morning. Brooks raised an eyebrow. That's an all-nighter. Then don't sleep. Morales grinned, his respect clear. I like her. By 5:30 a.m., Elena's chambers were a war room, papers strewn across the desk, coffee cups piling up. Mia had pulled case files until her eyes burned, her fingers trembling from exhaustion, but fueled by the fire of the moment. Brooks and Morales worked laptops, cross-referencing complaints with court records, their faces lit by the glow of screens. Marcus returned with coffee and a grim update. Kessler's union just filed a grievance, claiming you provoked him. They're pushing for your recusal from his case. Elena didn't look up from her notes. Let them try. Mia handed her a stack of files, her voice urgent. We've got 22 complaints against Kessler since 2017. 9 involved Black or Latino defendants. 6 had body cam issues, either missing or corrupted. And Paul Grayson signed off on dismissing 4 of them. Elena's pen paused. Grayson, the prosecutor in my courtroom yesterday. Marcus crossed his arms, his voice low. He's been Kessler's go-to for years. Plea deals, drop charges, you name it. Elena's voice was quiet, but lethal. That's not a coincidence. That's collusion. Her phone rang. Chief of Police Laura Hammond. Elena answered, her tone neutral. Chief? Elena, Hammond said, her voice strained. I saw the footage. It's bad. Bad doesn't cover it. A pause stretched, heavy with tension. I'm not defending Kessler, Hammond said. He's a liability, but you're stirring up a hornet's nest. The union's screaming, the mayor's panicking, and I've got council members asking if you're trying to tank the department. I'm trying to save it, Elena said. Your department's been bleeding trust for years. Kessler's just the symptom. Hammond sighed, her voice weary. You're pulling on threads that could unravel everything. Cops, prosecutors, city hall. You know how deep this goes. Then it's time we dug, Elena, listen to me. File charges against Kessler, fine. I'll support it. But if you keep dragging in names, you're going to make enemies you can't outrun. Elena's voice was steel. I've been running my whole life, Laura. I'm done. The line went dead. Marcus raised an eyebrow, his face unreadable. She's scared. She should be, Elena said. They all should be. Brooks entered, holding a slim folder, her scar catching the light. We found something. She opened it, a transcript from a 2024 precinct surveillance audio. Kessler's voice laughing. Torres thinks she's untouchable with that gavel. Let her come for me. I've got people who'll make sure she never sits on that bench again. Another voice, smug. Careful, Danny. She's got friends, too. Kessler's laugh. Not the kind that matter. Elena's pulse quickened. Who's the second voice? We're running it, Morales said, but we think it's Grayson. If you can confirm that, we will, Brooks said, her voice fierce. But there's more. Last night, the DA's office held an emergency meeting. They're drafting a motion to recuse you, claiming you're biased as the victim. Elena's jaw tightened. They want to silence me. Marcus cursed under his breath, his guilt surfacing. If they pull you off, they'll slap Kessler with a misdemeanor and send him on paid leave. Not this time, Elena said. I want a public hearing. I want the press there. I want the record to show I stepped down voluntarily, not because I'm compromised, but because I won't let this die quietly. Brooks nodded, a spark of admiration in her eyes. You're going all in? Elena's voice was fire. I'm going for the roots. By 9 a.m., the courthouse was a pressure cooker. Reporters swarmed the halls, their cameras flashing like lightning. Outside, activists chanted, their signs reading, "No justice, no peace," and "Hold Kessler accountable," their voices rising in a rhythmic roar. Elena entered the main courtroom, flanked by Marcus and Brooks, her navy suit sharp as armor. Today, she wasn't judging, she was fighting. The room fell silent as she took the witness table, the air thick with anticipation. Across from her stood Paul Grayson, his tie askew, and Ethan Caldwell, a state ethics board rep, with a practiced but brittle smile. Grayson's face was pale, his hands fidgeting. Caldwell spoke first, his voice smooth. Judge Torres, we're here to address your recusal from the Kessler case, given your involvement as the alleged victim. Elena's voice was steady, cutting through the formality. Let's be clear. I'm not recusing because I'm compromised. I'm stepping aside to ensure this case isn't buried. Grayson cleared his throat, his voice unsteady. Our concern is procedural. As the victim, your impartiality is questionable under state law. I know the law, Elena said, her tone sharp, and I know why you're pushing this. You want this case contained. She turned to the press, locking eyes with a young Latina reporter in the front row, her camera rolling. I'm requesting that the Kessler case be elevated to federal oversight. I'm also calling for an independent investigation into all cases tied to Officer Kessler, including those dismissed by Mr. Grayson. The room buzzed, murmurs rippling like waves. Grayson's face tightened, his eyes darting to Caldwell. Judge, this isn't the place for accusations, he said, his voice rising. It's exactly the place, Elena countered. Brooks placed a file on the table, her movements deliberate. This contains 22 complaints against Kessler since 2017, 9 involving minority defendants. 6 had missing body cam footage. 4 were dismissed by you, Mr. Grayson, despite clear evidence of misconduct. Grayson's voice cracked. This is speculation. Is it? Elena said, her gaze unrelenting. Brooks produced another document, her scar a silent testament to her stake in this fight. This is a $20,000 donation to the Police Benevolent Fund rerouted to Kessler's legal defense. The donor? A shell company linked to a developer who's bankrolled the mayor's campaign. Caldwell swallowed, his smile faltering. That's irrelevant to the recusal. It's relevant to corruption, Elena said, her voice ringing clear. And here's more. A 2023 case where Kessler planted evidence. The complaint was buried by Deputy Chief Malone, who mentored Kessler, and you, Mr. Grayson, declined to prosecute. The room erupted, shouts, camera flashes, ex-posts flying like wildfire. Grayson stood, his chair scraping. This is a witch hunt. This is accountability, Elena said, her words a hammer. Caldwell raised a hand, his voice strained. I need time to review this. You'll have it, Elena said, but let the record show I'm recusing myself to protect the process, not because I'm intimidated and not because I'll stay silent. She turned to the press, her voice resonant, the room hanging on her words. This city has shielded a system of abuse for too long. Today isn't about a slap. It's about what that slap exposed, a machine that thrives on silence, fear, and complicity. She looked at Grayson, whose face was now ghostly. That machine is breaking. Grayson stormed out, Caldwell trailing like a shadow. Elena exhaled, turning to Marcus and Brooks. Marcus's eyes were heavy, his voice low. They'll hit back. They already are, Elena said. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. The message, back off, or your family pays. She showed it to Brooks, whose scar seemed to pulse with her anger. They're desperate, Brooks said. Good, Elena replied. Desperate people make mistakes. In a gray cell, colder than he'd ever imagined, Daniel Kessler paced like a caged animal. No badge, no authority, just him and the concrete. He'd always believed he was untouchable, his father's legacy and the union's muscle shielding him from every complaint. But now the walls were closing in, the echo of Elena's voice haunting him. The door clicked open. A man in a black suit entered, mid-50s, gray eyes, no name. He tossed a folder onto the bench. Your way out, he said, or your grave. Kessler scowled, his voice rough. Who are you? Someone who cleans up messes, the man said, his tone flat. You've become a problem, Daniel, but you can still be useful. Useful? Kessler snapped. I'm in a cage because of that judge. Exactly, the man said. Torres is digging too deep. She's threatening interests bigger than you can imagine. You want freedom. You make her stop. Kessler's eyes narrowed, his father's voice echoing in his mind. Never back down, never lose control. You want me to threaten her? No, the man said. You make her feel the cost. Subtly. He opened the folder, photos of Elena's family, her sister's house, her nephew at a soccer game. Kessler's stomach twisted, a flicker of doubt breaking through his anger. This is insane, he said. She's a judge. And you're a cop who slapped a judge, the man said, his voice cold. You're already screwed. Do this and you get a new life, private security, offshore accounts. Refuse, and you're looking at 20 years. The man left, the door clanging shut. Kessler stared at the folder, his hands shaking. His father's legacy had pushed him here, but this was a line even he hesitated to cross. He picked up the folder, his resolve hardening. Elena moved through the courthouse, her coat draped over her arm, the press a relentless swarm. Ex-posts were trending nationally, the hashtag Justice for Torres climbing global charts. In her chambers, Marcus waited, his face a mix of loyalty and guilt. You've got 8 voicemails, mayor, governor's office, and your sister." "My sister," Elena said, a rare softness in her voice. "She saw you on X," Marcus said, a faint smile breaking through. "Said you looked like a superhero." Elena's lips curved, but her phone buzzed, shattering the moment. An unknown number. "Your nephew's soccer practice ends at 4. Be smart." Her blood ran cold. She locked the door, handing the phone to Marcus. He read it, his face darkening, the weight of his past silence pressing harder. "This is war," he said. "I need a name," Elena said, "and I need my family safe." Marcus nodded, his voice firm despite the storm in his eyes. "I'm on it. I'll get your sister and nephew to a safe house." That night, Kessler was moved. No paperwork, no trace. He was given a burner phone, a car, and instructions. Make her feel it. He drove to a quiet street near Elena's sister's house, his hands gripping the wheel. His father's voice roared in his head. Protect the family name, no matter the cost. But as he stared at the house, a small part of him faltered, remembering the rookie he'd once been, before the system twisted him. He took a photo, sent it to the number he'd been given, and waited, his heart pounding. The next morning, Elena received an unmarked envelope. Inside, a photo of her sister's house, taken at dusk. On the back, in Sharpie, "You can't win." She stood frozen, her breath catching, then dialed the U.S. Marshals. "I need protection for my family, and I need Kessler in custody. Now." The federal building was a fortress, its air heavy with purpose. Elena sat across from Marshal Karen Holt and DOJ official David Nguyen. She slid the photo across the table, her voice steady, despite the fear gnawing at her. "My sister's house, taken last night. Kessler's behind it." Holt examined it, her face unreadable. "You're sure?" "He's not acting alone," Elena said. "Someone's pulling his strings." Nguyen leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "You're asking for federal protection, Kessler's arrest, and what else?" "An emergency order," Elena said. "Freeze every case tied to Kessler's testimony. Open a federal probe into the New Haven PD, the DA's office, and the mayor's campaign." Holt raised an eyebrow, her voice dry. "That's a tsunami." "Then let it come," Elena said, her resolve unshakable. Marshals were dispatched to track Kessler. Elena returned to the courthouse, meeting Brooks in the records room, the air thick with dust and determination. "We traced the burner," Brooks said, her scar catching the dim light. "Kessler called a number linked to a consulting firm in Hartford. That firm's been paid by the mayor's re-election campaign." Elena's eyes narrowed. "And the firm?" "Flagged last year," Brooks said. "A whistleblower, Rachel Kim, was investigating their finances. She was found dead 3 weeks later. Car accident. Ruled suspicious, but closed." Elena's chest tightened. Rachel's name, a new weight on her shoulders. She was onto something. "She was," Brooks said, her voice fierce. "We're pulling her files. If there's a connection, we'll find it." Kessler's luck ran out in a deserted warehouse lot, the night air sharp with the scent of oil and gravel. Marshals surrounded him, their flashlights cutting through the dark. "Drop the phone, Kessler," Holt barked, her voice a command. He froze, his father's voice fading, then let the phone fall, his knees hitting the ground. Back at the courthouse, Elena received the alert. Kessler in custody. She didn't relax, her mind still racing. In a meeting with Brooks, Marcus, and Nguyen, new evidence emerged. "Rachel Kim's files," Nguyen said, sliding a folder across. She'd uncovered payments from the consulting firm to multiple officials, Grayson, Malone, and City Councilor Linda Pierce. She was about to go public when she died. Elena's voice was low, her anger simmering. Someone silenced her. And they're trying to silence you, Brooks said, her scar a silent vow. But Kessler's talking. He's named Grayson, Malone, and Pierce. Elena stood, looking out at the city, the chants of protesters rising like a tide. X was ablaze. Justice for Torres trending globally. Posts from Chicago to Los Angeles echoing her name. This isn't just Kessler, she said. It's a city choking on its own secrets. Marcus shifted, his voice heavy. Elena, there's something I need to tell you. She turned, her eyes narrowing. What is it? He took a breath, his guilt spilling out. Years ago, I worked a case with Kessler. He planted evidence, and I stayed silent. The union leaned on me, said it was for the greater good. I've carried that ever since. Elena's face softened, but her voice was firm. Why tell me now? Because I've been gathering evidence, Marcus said, pulling a flash drive from his pocket. Recordings, emails, proof of Kessler's deals with Grayson and Malone. I was too scared to act then, but I'm not now. Elena took the drive, her respect for him deepening. You're making it right, Marcus. That's what matters. The press conference was chaos. Reporters, activists, and citizens packed the courthouse steps, their voices a roar of defiance. Elena stepped to the podium, no robe, just resolve, the wind catching her hair. I became a judge to serve justice, she began, her voice cutting through the noise. But justice isn't a promise, it's a fight. Today, I stand as a witness to a system that's failed too many for too long. She held up a folder, the crowd hushing. This contains the names of 15 individuals who've abused their power. Officers, prosecutors, counselors, and yes, a judge. I've given this to federal investigators. We're here because of what one act of violence revealed, a network built on silence and fear. The crowd erupted, signs waving, a young man shouting, "We're with you, Judge." Elena continued, her voice steady. This isn't about me. It's about Rachel Kim, Jamal Carter, and every person who's been silenced. We're not just breaking a system, we're rebuilding it. That night, a voicemail came from Judge Arthur Langston, her old mentor, his voice heavy with warning. Elena, you're tearing down what we built. Stop, or you'll lose everything. She deleted it, her heart heavy but unyielding. The smear campaign hit hard, articles accusing her of bias, doctored photos from her activist days, threats to her family. But Elena fought back, releasing her records, her notes, her truth. The public rallied, X amplifying her story, a viral post from a famous activist declaring, Elena Torres is our voice. Weeks later, the federal courthouse was packed, the air electric with anticipation. Elena testified against Kessler, her voice unwavering. He struck me because he thought I didn't belong, but that moment showed us what's broken and what we must fix. Kessler was convicted, 7 felonies, his father's legacy shattered. Grayson resigned, facing charges. Malone was indicted. The mayor's campaign collapsed under scrutiny. A federal probe shook New Haven, reviewing 200 cases, auditing police practices, and sparking reform talks nationwide, from Los Angeles to New York. Elena resigned, her final act a speech to the Judiciary Board, her voice resonant. I lit a fire, let others carry the torch. She returned to her family's home, her nephew running to her, his eyes bright. You won, Tia, he said, his small arms wrapping around her. I started, she replied, her voice soft but fierce. Winning's up to all of us. Jamal Carter, inspired by Elena, enrolled in law school, his dream of becoming a lawyer now within reach. The movement she sparked grew, protests spreading to other cities, the hashtag Justice for Torres, a rallying cry. Elena Torres's fight isn't just hers, it's ours. In a nation wrestling with division, her stand against corruption and prejudice echoes the battles we face. From New Haven streets to the X-posts lighting up screens, she reminds us that justice isn't a moment, it's a movement. Share this if truth matters to you. Tell us in the comments how you've fought for what's right. Subscribe for stories that break the silence. Because when justice speaks, it reshapes the future.